Yeah, after you're done, we can write your name on there. Just take one.
The old names don't matter, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm on the wrong input. Okay, so we got a little bit to do. Hopefully we'll be able to finish. If not, we'll take it on next time. So today we are going to do lab 12. Okay. If you scroll down on your lab, you will find this. I'll go ahead and download this as I have it on my laptop. I'm gonna make sure that the uploads are done. They take forever to put it on the Google Drive. Okay, so as you plug in your external hard drive, you will find two folders. One is gonna be the server 2019. Two is gonna be Windows 10. For those of you who are working from home, oh, they did finish. God. You will need to download the file from my Google Drive. Okay. Let me open this up. So today we are going to do a few things. We are going to install some server rules. On the server 2019, you already learned how to install the OS itself, but we are going to set up two things. One is going to make it a domain controller, which makes it a DNS server. Two, we are going to use one of the roles, which is Active Directory, and the book talks about that, to be able to make user accounts and control them. So in a network environment, you would normally log into a domain, which is a server that is going to manage all the resources as far as IP and your system. And then we are going to manage the policy, which are the rules for these systems and the accounts. So as you plug in the drive, you will find these folder, okay? And that's where you're gonna open up your VirtualBox. So search for VirtualBox. And we're gonna start with Windows Server 2019 first. So what you will do is you will go to add, or you will see a plus sign there, and then browse to your external hard drive, okay? I have it on my desktop as I copied the files for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and browse to the server, the CIS25 server 2019, open up that folder, and then you're gonna find the VBox file, and you're gonna click open. So click the add button, right? And browse to the folder where you have your VM file, and you're gonna click that open. Since I have it on my list right here, I'll just go ahead and click start. So once you do that, you can click start. And VirtualBox is gonna load. So it's gonna take a minute. Then after that, what you will do is we are gonna set up the IP addresses for these, okay? The login for the virtual machine is this. Okay, so once it loads, you're gonna click input, keyboard, Control Alt Delete, which is this host delete option right here. and then you're gonna log in. CIS25A exclamation point, all caps. Hold on 1 second. Let me double check the password. Was it able to lock you in? Hold on, maybe it's. Locks me out right now. Sorry. Try CIS25 exclamation. Like this. Is that it? So I had a typo. It should be CIS25. Okay. I'll re-upload this. Okay, so once you have this set up, it's gonna show you. So the one that I installed for you is actually the data center, which is the largest edition that you can get with server. So you can close this prompt if it shows you that. And then you're gonna click local server. And this is what you see. So the local system is the computer itself. So you are going to click the IPv4 address assigned by DHCP. We're going to click this link right here after we click local. And then you're going to see this. We're going to right click, go to properties. And we are going to click on version 4. Click properties. Then you're going to check the second radio button. And where am I at right here? I'm at this part right here. So you're going to enter a static IP address. So when you manually set up an IP, that's how you would do it in Windows system. All servers should have a manual IP, a static IP. So we would use the IP address 12.0.10.10.x, and you can choose between 10 to 100. Okay, you can say .12. Hello. Each of you might want to grab one of the external hard drive in the plastic case, the gray or the color one, and then boot your computer and plug it in. We are at step 9. Okay, so here I'm gonna go ahead and put in my IP. Well, let's retype that. 12.10.10. I'm gonna go ahead and choose, let's see, I'll do a 50. The subnet mask, you just click on it and it automatically fills this in. This is like the zip code for the computer. It's gonna narrow it down to which network that system belongs to. The default gateway is gonna be your router IP. So normally it's a .1 because that's the first device that you see coming in from the internet. So we would do 12.10.10.1. Okay. As we're going to make this computer a DNS, you're going to repeat this IP right here. Okay. So 12.10.10.50. So whatever IP that you put here, you need to make it here the same. So the first thing that you should do after you install the Windows Server OS is to set up its IP, because the server don't change IP addresses like other systems. So when you're done with that, we are at step 11. Then you're going to go ahead and click OK. Okay, and then close this. So now we have a static IP and we can close the Ethernet property. And for those of you who just joined us, don't put the A for the password, just CIS25 as I highlighted. Okay, after we enter the DNS, the same number as step, sorry about that. That should be step 9. Okay, once we close, what we want to do is we want to take, so after it does that, it's going to update this right here, and I want the screenshot. Okay, it should show your IP as like this. It might take a minute for it to update it. So do a screenshot, and we're at step 13. Okay, so once we have the IP address, notice that it tells me that the IPv6 is still dynamic. We can also configure that. We can do that another time. Okay, then we're going to go to dashboard. Okay, and then we're going to click add roles. Okay, add roles and features. Then you are going to click next. We're going to choose role base and go next. And it should show. So why is this showing me the 10.10.2.15 here? Do you know? It's because it's using my host system. Okay. So that's why it's doing that. And we need to fix that by bridging the adapter on VirtualBox. Go next. Okay. We can always change that. So, all right. Here is where I'm at right now. After I click next 2 times, right, type down the IP that it shows you. The important part is that we want to make sure that that IP eventually needs to match whatever we set on 9. Okay, and it has to do with VirtualBox. So put in the IP address. Mine shows this. This is coming from the host system, Windows 10 that I'm using to play with VirtualBox. Okay, so how do I know what the name of the system is? This is the name of your system right here. Win dash whatever, okay? So ideally, you would want to change this name, and we can do that at the beginning when we set the IP. So that will be just part of the local system you need to change, okay? All right. So after we put down the answer for those 2, for number 16, we're gonna go next for the server selection. So here's the server role. I want you to scroll down and look for DNS and add the features. Static. Go ahead and click continue. And then we are going to click next. And then next. And then next. and then you're gonna click install. This is gonna take a minute or two. Doesn't take very long. Now you can do DNS and Active Directory together. I think I took the procedure for my 48 class and I put it's done separately. So you can select multiple options for the roles. As we select DNS, we can also select Active Directory and it will just all be together. Okay, so when it tells you here that it has succeeded and the bar is full, then you're gonna click close. So notice now that I have the DNS role. Okay. All right. Any question? Okay. So then we are gonna go ahead and click tools at the top. Where am I at? I'm at step 26. So we're gonna click tools and now you see DNS management console is there. So we're gonna click DNS. This opens up the DNS management console and it tells you this is your server name right here. Okay. So we are gonna make a new zone. Every time that you install a new DNS, you have to create a zone. With this, it's gonna create records for the server to associate IP to your domain name, which is a .com, a .edu, a .io, etc. So all the web server that you see out on for all your websites, they are tied to a DNS, a public DNS. Okay. All right. So we're here. Okay. It tells you that you're going to right click the server on the left. So right click the server name and you're going to make a new zone and it's going to give you the wizard. You're going to go next. And since we don't have any other zone, the primary zone is going to be a copy of the zone that will update directly. That's what we want. If you have a failover server that's DNS, you would choose a secondary zone. Okay. So go next. Any question? Okay. So the forward lookup zone here, this is going to allow the server to associate the IP address of your system, which is your server, to a fully qualified domain name. It's going to look up, it's going to translate like google.com to an IP, something like that, right? So we're going to go next. And then you are going to give it a new zone name. Okay. So I want you to use your full name and a .com for that. So we can say Casey Wynn, lowercase, .com. You can name your zone anything you want. Sometimes it will pertain to, you know, like HQ, right? For headquarter, branch 1, Los Angeles, Florida, San Francisco location, right? So we want to make it a zone name and we're going to go next. And so as you make that, it's going to pre-fill this. And what it's going to do is it's going to be, if you're copying it to another server, this is the file that you need. Okay. So what step am I at? I'm at 32. And we're going to go ahead and click next. And it selected this for me. Do not allow dynamic updates. You can always change this down the line. This is what's recommended. Okay. So when we do dynamic updates, that means that we're updating the other servers and so on. We want to do secure updates. So when you change configuration on one, it will link to the other. Go next and then finish. Okay. Now, in my other class, I talk about reverse lookup zone. That's really from, IP address to name, and then forward lookup zone is name to IP address, like casingwin.com to the IP. Okay, so we finished 34. Now let's do AD as a separate. So you can close this now. And then we come back here onto the dashboard. We're gonna click add roles and feature, go next. Okay, then role base again, go next. Now see, notice my IP address take effect. That might be a little bit, right? Click next. And then you are going to select the domain services, add feature. You're also gonna select don't and and then go next, and then go next to proceed. And then next again. So here it tells you Active Directory services store information about users, computers, devices on the network. It helps administration secure, manage this information and facilitate resources. So whenever that you log on to the network, it's actually Active Directory. If they're running Windows, that authenticates you. So here at RCCD, they use Windows. So when you log in using your email account to RCCD, right? It goes through the process that it's gonna authenticate you with Active Directory. And it gives you an access token, which allows you to access your email, your Canvas, and other things all in one. That's called single sign-on. Sure.
So, yeah, we here late, but for number 9, it says enter the IP address.
Yeah.
The Ethernet properties, but I don't see where I would do that.
So if you right click where it says Ethernet and you choose properties, then you have to select the IPv4. Mike is helping you. Yeah, you just missed the IPv4 portion. Good. All right. Thank you. All right. So to answer this question, it says, what is Active Directory store? We can say users, computers, groups.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
go on behind too.
I'm trying to make sense of what he's going super fast.
I am going super fast for you. Okay.
Yes.
Where are you at right now?
He's at, he's making the DNS server, in select server roles. So hit DNS
Oh,
right there.
Just follow the steps. Okay. And then it tells you here for how many domain controllers per domain. So it tells you that for the case of server outage, you should have 2 domain controllers per domain. Okay, why? So you should have 2 domain controllers. That means that there are 2 DNS that are domain controllers. Okay, those are the server system that control the domain. Why is that? So in case one failed, the other ones can back up. One is backup of the primary. Okay, I'll try to slow down from here on out. Okay, go next. And so these are the features that is added when you add the DNS role. It's gonna give you a few tools. You can remotely administer your user accounts, your AD. You also can manage, this is what we're going to be doing later, group policy management. Those are the rules of your network, right? How they can log in, when they log in, what can they use?
No.
Then click install. And then we're going to wait a few minutes for it to go. When it tells you that it succeeded and it's a full bar, you can close the wizard. So DNS in Windows Server is always going to be together with Active Directory. Okay. So when you're using the web services like, like Outlook.com, and you are creating a user account on Outlook, what happens is the web server passes all of that information to the email server and the DNS and Active Directory. So you officially has an account, right? It stores, the directory stores your username, your password. So when you reset your password, right, it's gonna need to update your account information in the directory. And it's simply that. Okay, and then when you request them to delete your account, they don't really delete your account. They disable your account for a while, and then eventually they'll remove it. But and you can tie this into like a web API and be able to have the user do self-enrollment, but there are additional features that you have to add on with that along with IIS as a role for web services. Okay. So what I'm doing, I'm showing you here is how to be able to install DNS and Active Directory on Windows, right? And there is a class in spring that focuses on Windows operating system only. I'm teaching it. It's the same time as this one at 9, Monday and Wednesday. It's called CIS40C, part of the certificate for IT specialists. All right. So when we finish installation for AD, we're going to click close. Okay. So here I am on 44. Bless you. Okay. So now what we're going to do is click on the ADDS on the left, and you're going to see this warning. Okay, so where I'm at right here, 45. When you look at your dashboard, you're going to see this. It's not ready. So it tells you that it needs to be configured. Okay, so you're going to click on ADDS. Let me add that here. Sometime I'm like ahead of myself, so I don't put all the little detail. Okay. Then we're going to click this, click more, and it opens this up. And you're going to see this link on the right where it says promote this server to be the domain controller. So even if you install DNS and Active Directory, it doesn't make it a domain controller until you configure it. Okay, so click this.
What did you do to your? Wait,
Okay,
yeah, there you go.
yeah, it takes a second sometimes for things to update because it's virtual machine.
Yep.
Okay, so here is where we click, after we click the promote link, we're gonna add this to a new forest because we don't have a network yet. So we're gonna click add here. Okay. And you are gonna make it a root name. So put your full name.com. So the root is actually the .com portion, or the .edu, or the .net, or the whatever, right? IO, etc. There's so many different ones. And then the fully qualified domain name is gonna be the name with the root. So if you have a subsidiary server, like a child server, have you ever seen a website where it says, you know, so-and-so dot, let's say google.com, right? So that will become like a child of the domain controller. So that will just trickle down to the sub server on that. Okay. So we're going to click next. So here it's going to tell you that this is the forest functional level. So think about the forest. In the forest, you have the trees, right? So at the top of the forest, you have your fullname.com. And then underneath that, we're going to have other servers to expand our network. So here at the functional level, mine's still loading. Sorry, it's a little slow. You want to select 2019 or newer, right? Now, the reason why that it shows this is, let's say that you have server that uses 2016, it will be able to work if you select 2016 with your new server. But if you select 2019, right, the functional level needs to be that we have to have some backward capability. Okay, let me see if I'm able to go next on this. Mine just waiting. Okay, so here, actually just select 2016, that's the newest, so we can work with the previous version. And the domain functional level, we would keep it like that. But if you have other older server, like a prior administrator, if they install like 2012, you have to select 2012 or R2. Or if you have an older server, like 2018 version of the edition, you have to select that. Okay, so we're going to select 2016. Let me correct that. And this should be only CIS25. So we can give it a recovery password. So this is only going to restore the directory in case something crashed. Okay, that's another password. I chose to use the same one, but you should use a different one in real world. Okay, so in the case that we back that up and if something happens, if our server just crashed or we get water on our server, we have to replace the machine, you can take that database of your user and group and put it into your new system that you replace. And you need that password to do that. Okay. We are gonna not delegate right now because we only have one DNS. But if you want to, you can create delegation. We're gonna go next. I don't know why I'm extremely slow on this today. All right. It's gonna fill in what you give the .com earlier, right? So it's gonna say that it should be your full name and then or your company's name, and then we're gonna go next. How are we doing? Any questions? Yeah. Doesn't matter what? Okay, thank you. Okay, then once I have the wins allows you to resolve by name instead of addresses, right? Like system names. So it's an older way for us to really identify other objects like, you know, computers in the network. So we usually would use wins in the case where if you have an older OS on a computer that needs to only see, you know, the network by name, we would do that. Then it's gonna create those files and it will give you the summary and then go next. So this might take a few minutes for it to do prerequisite check, and when it's done, then we are gonna go ahead and go forward. So when you install the role, it just simply make that role available, but you have to configure for it to fully install everything else, right? And that's the way the Windows Server works, is that you can add different roles to it and it will be able to function what you set it to be. So it tells me here that I have our cryptography algorithm. I still have to configure the delegation for authoritative parent zone. In the case, if I have additional domain controllers that I need to add, I still need to configure that. And everything else is checked. So I would click install. And then it's gonna default the security settings as this. Sorry, a little slow on my side too. So when it's finished, you should see your roles here and you would check, okay? So take a screenshot for that when it's done. Don't do this one. I'm gonna read it out. Don't shut it down. Just go to the next part. Okay. It tells me that it's gonna reboot, right? Click close. So after it installs, it's gonna want to reboot. So, and then we'll just relog back in and take a screenshot. So in order to be part of the network, you have to be using the IP addresses that falls into that range of the network, right? And this time, to make it easier, I wanted to use static IP for the server and static IP for your Windows 10 VM. But you don't always have to do that. You can use dynamic IP on the Windows 10, but on your server, you have to use static IP. Okay?
Yeah.
What happened?
Nothing.
Stuck on any spot anywhere? So 58, it's gonna automatically restart, and now it's applying all the settings now that we configured. We're more than halfway there, so the next part's pretty easy. So normally, all of this stuff that I'm giving you in like an hour, right, that can be applied to a whole entire course. So you will see more of the details and additional stuff in another class like CIS40C. So if you go for the Microsoft, the MTA certifications for the server ones, right, because there are 4 tests for the server. One of the tests is just on the DNS and Active Directory and how to configure. So we're only touching like the surface of that, right? But for Microsoft, if you want to certify Microsoft to get the associates on the server section, you have to complete the 4 tests, and then you will be able to get, if you complete the 4 tests, I think they give you the professional one. So long ago, I did the Windows professional ones or certified professionals, and then so outside of the CompTIA, you also can get Microsoft certifications, you can get Red Hat for Linux, and so on, right? There are other certifications. Okay, so the next part, we're gonna make the users in the groups, and we're gonna use Active Directory. So if you already have your system booted, you are gonna click on Tools and then go to AD and Users and Computers. Okay, my system is still applying settings, so it's gonna take a minute or so. And I'm running Zoom, so everything slows down a little bit, even on the Alienware. Now you can run as many virtual machines as your system can accommodate, right? Like your processor and your RAM can accommodate, and also your storage. So on the 32 gig of RAM, you can probably run 2 gig per virtual machine. So we can run as many as our system can handle, right? And sometimes when we test things, that's usually the case. You might run 4, 5, or 6. But you will see that we can run 2 concurrently. Okay, let's check. It's still going. Yeah, you can always go back and take a screenshot when it boots up again.
I don't know what it is in the old one.
When we're done with the drive, put your name on the label. Okay, either the inside or the outside label. I used to have a bunch of labels before, but in the case where if we need to reuse it again, you don't have to start from scratch. Okay. And these are the separate set of drive. I used to use these drives for 27 and 25. And then we also have the solid state drive also. Oh my goodness, so slow. Okay, if you already have gotten to after the reboot, you can go ahead and make the user account. So when you make you always start with making the user account, and then every user account you want to add them into groups and manage the groups. Okay. There are different types of groups. So if you want it for your domain local, that will be to the domain in the forest, and it has to be trusted or any trusted domain. So think of it like the universe, the world, and your computer. Okay, so the higher the scope, when we choose universal group, that is where it would contain all the users and the groups at a higher level, right, in the universe. Then if we choose global, that's a little bit less in the in the forest. So that will be in the same domain, but not in the whole universe. So it will be less. So what happens to that is if you create an account and you group it as a global group, and sometimes you try to access it as a universal group, it won't let you. Okay. So think about like how you scale that out. System, world, universe. Everything in the universe is seen underneath, but things that are underneath is not always seen in the universe. So if you create it on the local domain, it will not be able to access if you're trying to pull it for the universe. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do input, keyboard, Control Alt Delete. And see, notice that now we have a domain, so it shows me my account in my domain name, which is Casey Wynn, right? And then I'm just gonna log in. So now I no longer have other issues. There's some error with the group policy, but I'm gonna go ahead and fix that. So click Tools. And you are going to go into Users and Computers. Active Directory Users and Computers. So which step am I at here? I'm at step 59. You don't have to do 58 as it automatically reboot. And then on the left-hand side, you would see that once we click that, it's going to open up the console like this. Okay. Yes, it's a lot of step in Windows always. All right, click expand this. This is my domain controller now, right? And then I would see the users. I'm going to go ahead and right click the user and click new. And I'm going to make a user. Okay. Actually, I have you make a group first. Sorry. Right click the users folder and then click new and click group. We are going to give it a group name. So we're just going to call them workers. And like what I said, right? We want this to be global group and security options. So we are going to go global security options. Click OK. So now we have a group. Then we are going to right click the users folder. And we're going to make a new user, new, and then choose user. So here I am, right, at 64. And then you can make a user account, Kyle Johnson and Dora Hernandez. So we're going to go Kyle Johnson. And the login is the first initial and last name, right? That's usually the standard practice. And then when you click next, we're going to let them change their password the first time they log in. And then we want to give them a complex password. So it's going to be this. Okay, capital P at SS. Is it $? Yeah. And then confirm that.
Yeah, it would be hilarious.
Okay. So whenever that you need to disable the user account, you can always go into the property and click disable. Or if you don't want them to change password, you can click this, right? So we want to only select the first option as default and then go next and then finish. So now you have Kyle Johnson here. And then we're going to make another one called Dora Hernandez. So imagine if you have thousands of users, right? You can actually write a script to do that, instead of manually doing this all the time. And then we're going to give her D Hernandez. And then next. And then give it a password. That match. I'm fired. It's been a long day. Oh my God. Okay. Oh. Yeah, I got lazy, so it didn't like that. Okay, so we got two users, okay? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna add them into a group. So you're gonna right click each of the users. And then you are going to choose add to a group. And we're simply gonna look for workers. Check names, click OK. Same thing. Okay, if you ever need to see them, if you double click and go to member of tab, it should show that they are a domain user and they are part of workers. So that's how you add the user to the group. We're almost done. So once you have your users added to the group, okay, take a screenshot. It should show your users and your group there.
That's very slow.
I know.
It is a little slow on the VBox side, so just give it some time. Okay, now we're going to talk about group policy, which is the rule for your objects. So we are going to go ahead and click, we can close this, we can click tools, and then you should see group policy management. Click that, and you should see this. Okay. Then if you click it, you would see your domains in here and your DNS there. So we're going to right click and we are going to choose create a group policy that's going to apply. So how am I going to be able to apply for everybody in my network under that server? I can create a set of rules for that. And what if you want to apply it for a certain group of people? Yeah, you can add the group for that associated rules. Okay. So we're going to call it workers GP. And then we're going to click OK. So it's not done, right? We just made a policy. So where am I at here? I am at this step 72. Some of you are still waiting for your server. Okay, it's going to take a little bit. As you know, the drives also is slower than directly in the computer. So gotta be patient with technology. Any questions so far? But you can't have that because if your company uses Windows, you can't just say, oh, I'm gonna go with Linux. So you have to be able to work with the technology that you have, right?
Yeah.
So we can't just say, oh, we're gonna scrap everything because it's taking 5 minutes longer than usual.
Yes, there we go. Oh, wait a minute.
Okay,
Like, what was that thing again? It was,
so we still have 30 minutes. So I'm gonna pause a little bit as some of you are catching up. And if you're already working ahead, you can move forward. It should be pretty clear.
How do I?
Click input at the top.
But it's
There's no-
where, yeah.
the
How do I
bar's
bring it
not
up?
there.
Oh. It was a hotkey. I just don't remember.
It was like host and something.
Um,
Hold on, let me see.
oh,
Input for their keyboard, it's host and delete. Okay, any question? Okay. So as I made my group policy, some of you are still blue there. Okay. I would see the link group policy here. See how that is? So I would click on the link group policy objects. So where are you all at right now? I want to have a feel of where you're at. Is everybody where I'm close to where I'm at, or you still back here?
Um, I'm just behind.
Okay. So I'll move forward and I'll help you guys individually if you need help. Okay. Okay, so I clicked on my domain, and after I created my group policy, okay, I should be able to see it in the linked group policy object tab. So that this one right here. Okay, if you click on this, you click on the tab, you should see it. Then you right click and you choose edit. So it opens up the editor, and this is where you fix the rules. So in here, there are two configurations. Always go with the computer configuration as the action of the user would pertain to the computer itself. Now, the user configuration is really tied to like software, which we don't touch unless you want to set up software rules. Okay, so on an application server, this is the set of rules that we work with. On most of the other things like login, shut down the computer, use wireless, that's a computer related task. So we're going to click on the computer configuration. Then you're going to just expand the breadcrumbs. Okay. So here it tells me that I'm going to go ahead. Once I chose edit, when I right click the group, the workers GP,
wait.
I'm going to see an editor console, which is this.
Yeah.
If you miss a screenshot, that's fine. Not a big deal. Okay. All right. Then we're going to click computer configuration, policies, Windows settings, security settings, and then password policy. So we're going to go ahead and click this. Then go to security settings. Then we're going to go to account policies and then password policy. Yep.
Wait. Oh, that means-
Where are you at?
I don't see where- I don't see where it goes.
Uh-huh.
For some reason, it
The
wasn't
shutdown,
showing up.
I shut
It
down
was
my
on-
It just takes a-
Okay.
Yeah, it should. Yeah, you didn't have to. Sorry. That's my boo-boo. Just reboot it. It should be on their list of virtual machines. So turn it back on. And then once it boots, log in and then continue with 59. Yeah, it's supposed to restart after you finish the install of the ADDS,
It
so you
does.
didn't have to like restart it.
It does. It did it before I did this.
Yeah, you don't need to do 58. It's fine. You can go back to it and then take a screenshot. Okay, so when we are in account policy, I'm missing a step here. Account policy. And then password policy. Right here. This is where you can set up their password rules. Okay. So we're gonna double click this and then we're gonna define it. So how many passwords do you want them to recycle? So you know how when you go to a website and you can't reuse your old password, right? They had set the password history. So this is the password history. We're gonna put in 5 that they cannot use the last 5 passwords. Okay, then click OK. So I am at password history. Then we're gonna go password age. We're gonna make it where they have to renew the password every 90 days. Now, can you go longer, or you know, most websites they don't make it a password age. Rarely that you see that, maybe once a year, right? But because they don't want to manage a lot of that, because when you have millions of users, it becomes kind of crazy, right? Even though we automate it. So, but in a regular network, we normally give it like 3 months. Some network, they actually require like 45 days, but the default is 45 or 42 days, but you can do 90 days. Or whatever that you deem that will be fitting for your company. And we click OK. And it tells me that since I'm setting the maximum days that they can use that same password, I need to set up the minimum number of days. And a lot of the administrator, they'll do like 1 day but the default is 30 days. That means that they have to keep that password for 30 days before they could change it. Or sometimes they put 0 days, right? You've seen the website where you can change your password like the next minute. Yeah, some people, they feel like, what if that's a security thing, right? Okay, so click OK for the 30 days. So I'm here and then here. Then we're gonna make the length to be 8 characters. So double click the length and then we're gonna define it and we're gonna make it 8. Now some company, they want a passphrase, so you would then require like 12 or 16 characters. That gets a little harder for people. Okay. It doesn't matter how good they are, they will forget their password and then it will have to reset. Okay, I'll show you how you can reset your password on a server. Okay. And then if we wanted to make it complex, upper lowercase, letters, symbols, numbers, we just choose the complexity and we're going to enable that. So it's going to automatically require that the user use, you know, upper lowercase and so on. Click OK. And we don't need to do reversible encryption, that's fine. Then on account lockout. So if they put in 5 wrong passwords, it should lock them out for some time. Remember what I said, security will bind time, right? So this is going to prevent brute force, because if you don't set account lockout, it's tried and true, right? It's going to keep inputting the wrong password until it gets it right. So we have to implement account lockout. So on the left, we're going to click the account lockout policy, and you can always drag the console back and forth so you can see everything. and we're gonna lock them out for an hour if they get the password wrong, right? But most of the standard practice is like 24 hours. So here we're gonna set 60 minutes. If you want longer, you can. So as you click apply and okay on that, it's gonna ask you for the threshold. That's gonna be 5 invalid attempts, and then they can reset it after, and we can change that, right? So if you want the reset, like what we said here, 60 minutes, 5 tries, and then another 60 minutes, then we can go, they can reset it after an hour. Or they can call us and then we'll reset it for them. Any question? So that's how you can set up your account lockout policy. That's under account policy. You can set up your password policy. And then there are other policies that are followed. Okay. So those we're only going to play with today because Moses said it's already way too many steps, Dr. Wynn. So once we have everything set up, we are going to right click the policy that we created and we're going to choose enforce. Okay, so I'm going to get out of the editor. Remember that when you create a group policy, you cannot, it doesn't apply the rule until you edit and enforce. So we're going to close that. So notice that it shows no enforcement right now. If we want to apply the rule, we're going to right click and choose enforce. This is going to apply the rules now to our users, right? And click OK. What if you wanted to make the rules only for a certain group of people like CEO or the CIO or, you know, the executives? Then we can make a group called executive. We'll make a group of policy called executive GP, and then we would apply it to that group. Can you add this to a certain group? You sure can, right? So now I apply this to everybody in that domain. Okay. And then once I had enforced it, take a screenshot of that.
Oh, you're on the same as adding the.
So a lot of things look really great on paper, right? Like, but once you do this more often, you don't have to read the instruction, which takes time. You just do it. And so it should be like, I tell all my students, second nature. Okay. Just like how programming is. It should be like second nature eventually, if you practice it long enough. And if you administer a system often enough, it's gonna be second nature. So after this, you should be like, oh, I know where to go when to add the user to Active Directory. I know where to set up policy, right? Yeah.
You know what? I didn't pay attention to that.
Well, that's because you don't like Windows.
Yeah, no, I love Windows. I just don't like Windows Server.
It's
But
third Windows 10.
now everybody is on work groups, so we have to make sure, right? Windows 10. So Windows 10 policy is a little different, right? It's a lot less, but it looks similar. So account lockout, all of that is also in Windows 10. Okay. But in the server system, you're gonna see there's more things.
Yep.
So if you want to play around with it, you can take a look at a lot of different things, right? Like if I expand this just while I'm waiting for some of you to catch up, right? You can look at like, so the default, this is come with that, right? We saw that, and then the policy that we made is here. And you can go into the details and it tells you. But if you go into the domain and if you go here, and then if you go to see, for the global will impact the locations. You can add more of the policy, right? Let's say that I have a new policy here. I can change the settings. I can make it only for wireless people. I can do a lot of different things. So you can make as many policies as you want. And then if you want to enforce it or delete it, you can just right click and there you go. Okay. Now we are, so what we're gonna do is we are going to leave our server running. And now we're gonna play with the Windows 10 VM. Okay. So we're gonna click on the, go to VirtualBox app, not the virtual machine. Click machine, click add. And then you can find your folder on the drive. Failed to open on mine. Let's see if it starts here. It's already added, so. Should add a step. Bless you. Okay, so now I have I have the Windows 10 running and I have the server running. Okay, so it looks like this. So the login is CIS25. That's the local administrator, which is student, right? Now we're gonna make it part of the domain now. So like just like the server, we're gonna start with an IP address and then we'll join it to the domain. So we are gonna pause while some of you are catching up. Okay, no pressure. So I modified this a little bit to be more extended, but you need to open up your VM there. And for those of you who are downloading, that's because you're on Zoom, right? You're gonna see that it's gonna take a bit. It took me an hour to upload today for each. We're almost there, just the last part. So if you cannot join the domain, it's because there are two things that could go wrong, right? Your network configuration is not right, or your server is not right. Okay, so as I do this, I also want to make sure, oh, I'll get to that step. I log into Windows 10 and I'm going to open up settings. And remember, this is Windows 10 virtual machine, not your regular host machine. Okay. Then we're going to click network and internet. And then on the left, we're going to click Ethernet. And then we are going to go to change adapter options. So just like the other one, we're going to put in a static IP for this guy. Right click properties. Go to IPv4 properties and then use. I'm right here. So as your server, my server was 12.10.10.50, right? This is the network ID right here, right? When you take 40, I think one of you is in 40 with me. Then the rest needs to just match up, but the last digit's different. All your system, the last octet has to be unique. Okay, that's your host. Doesn't matter which class you're using. So we're gonna put in 12.10.10. So I'll go ahead and choose 150 since I have my server is 150. Then the preferred DNS is going to be your server IP 12.10.10.50. And then you just click the subnet mask and the default gateway 12.10.10.1. I'll leave it there for a second. Okay. So once we put in the static IP for Windows 10, right, then we can set it up to be now join the domain. So it's important that you understand that it has to be part of that network through the IP, and it has to be able to identify that system using the server name. Okay. Okay. Close this. We close this out. Then we're going to go back to settings home. We're going to go to system and then go down to about. And then we are going to scroll down and choose advanced system settings. And here is where we would set our computer name. So I'll just go. It tells you that you just put Windows 10 and then your initial. But schematically, we want to name it, right? Like here at NBC, they name it PSC and then a number. We're not done with this part yet. We have to click change. And this is important because sometimes you get an interview questions. They ask you, how do you join a Windows 10 to a domain? You would say, go to system property. You can do that through settings. And you would go to about or system and then about. And then you would go to the computer name tab. Okay, then you can specify the computer name. So my desktop here, even though I type it on the outside, I have to retype it again. So Windows 10. And then here is where you select the domain in your system property. Then you can do your .com here. And click OK. It's going to want to reboot. So you're going to let it. Okay. And that's how you join a client system to a network. Oh, it tells me. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Also, you need to do this. On your machine, you go to settings and you need to bridge it. Okay, so what I did was I go to my server machine, I click machine settings, and then go to network, and then choose bridge adapter. Click OK. And then on this one, I do the same thing. System and controller could not be contacted. Sure. Hold on 1 second. Let me check my. It's not seeing the server. Sure. Fifty. No, it's the wrong one. No. Oh, see how sometimes it does this? Okay, so when you guys get an error where it says domain doesn't get connected, it's doing a loop back here, right? So you have to go and fix it. This is something that Microsoft does. It's annoying. And then make sure that it's okay, and then click close, and then close again. So now let's go try here. Getting my bridge through. Okay. So I know some of you struggle to finish. We are gonna stop here. Okay. So even if you can't get to join the domain, when you finish with the group policy, just that's fine with this lab. It's a lot. I know some of you are like, oh, it's so much, I want to give up already. I will redo this part with you, and then we will do other things with this down the line. But I wanted you to get from it was the group policy. So take a screenshot, and if you got here already, just take a screenshot that you changed it and then submit that. Okay. Let me see why it's not setting up on the server side here. It should. I have tested this a million times before. 12.10.50. Class A, that, okay. So just get to the end of the group policy ones, and that will be good. Good enough. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll highlight this. And that is only optional. So we don't have to do after 94. Okay. When we're done, make sure that we shut down on the inside and close on the outside. Meaning that your server needs to be shut down with the Windows button on the inside like this, and power and shut down. And it would choose other unplanned, that's fine, and then click OK. Same thing with if you're using Windows 10, okay? But let me troubleshoot this. Questions? Okay, submit what you have. So when we make sure that we shut down the inside of our virtual machine, then close your VirtualBox app, detach the drive, and put your name on it. I left some pens here because it's like a hot commodity nowadays. We don't use pen as much. So put your name on the label. The other day, one of the students asked me for a pen, and I'm like scrambling to look for a pen. So put your name and then put your drive back. Okay. So the takeaway today was we were able to set up a couple of roles. We set up a little bit of group policy, and then we'll do the rest another time. Maybe next time we'll join it. I just gotta figure out why it's VBox is not. My configuration is correct here. There might be something that needs to be routed on.
I know, in there too.
Okay. Have a good night. Grab some snacks. I will see you next time. Don't forget, no school tomorrow if you have class on Thursday. So my 40A, no class tomorrow. And no class for my 7. Okay. So enjoy your day off, your long weekend. And I'll see you here next week. So I'll do also going into 14, I'll do a final review via Zoom, so you don't have to come. I know some of you drove a long way to get here. So after next week, we're gonna do final review and things like that via Zoom on Wednesday. So you can just log in. I'll send you an announcement and an email. I don't know why some of you don't receive that, but just check your student email at the beginning of the week. Okay. All right. Have a good night. Sorry for the rush and a lot of procedures. Thank you. Goodbye. Yeah, on the label, so we know which one you were using, and so you don't have to reset it up next time. Yeah, just put it right next beneath the first person name. Those people, they probably graduated and left a long time ago. It's like since 2019. Thank you for coming. See y'all. I'll put the video up. So 27 is offered. You want to take Security Plus? That one is in the afternoon though. And then 40C is at night, the same time as this class. And there are a bunch of other ones online. They're a little harder. You're welcome. Have a good one.
Well,
It should allow you to attach, right? Yep.
yep.
Okay, good. That was one of the things I checked.
I'm doing it every time we finish.
Okay, yeah, so you don't forget. Good night. Thank you too.
I submit the last.
Oh. I do want to get one.
Just in case if she forgot to like make it so we could upload.
Oh. I do when I get home, so I remind myself to do the classwork. The classwork.
I'll re-upload this right now.
I keep forgetting to do
Those are, they are. They're the other half of the stuff.
Yeah.
maybe upload the edited file so I don't forget. Because when I get home, it's like a million other things.
I think it's the last one. Last one. Yeah. Oreo. That's what. Mexico. Texting me on Instagram. Yeah. He said he's missed anything.
I will do that tonight, Richard. When I get home, it takes Zoom does take a little bit to give it to me, like an hour, and then YouTube takes an hour to, or 30 minutes to convert. So tonight. Okay. Okay. All right. Have a good night.
Driving? Oh,
I'm gonna
No, but I
stop
do
the
drive.
recording.